Hello everyone, I'm Bob Kosh of Greater Good Media LLC. Welcome to Breaking the Silence. We hope you find this series informative and inspiring. Before I turn this over to Clark, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Hack & Rose, attorneys at law, New York City. MedScreen Labs, Clifton, New Jersey. Standard Tile of Hanover. Hayek's Market in Newton, New Jersey. And New Pathways, Pinebrook. Shook Funeral Home, and many other sponsors that are listed on our website at www.greatergoodmediallc.com. And before I turn this over to Clark, I'd like to thank the Kiwanis Club of Clifton for allowing us to present this series to you. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend and our host, Clark Fredericks.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for tuning in, for supporting me. I was contacted back around the first of the year by members of the Clifton Kiwanis Club about doing a fundraising speech for them. I had no idea what the Kiwanis Club stood for, so I Googled them and found out they improve the lives of children in their community one child at a time. And I thought that's perfect for my mission in life. So I agreed to do a fundraiser for them. We set up 4 different dates for speeches, and they all had to get canceled because of the pandemic. So here we are tonight doing an online series. It was simply too much information to cram into one segment. So we've set up 5 weeks where we're going to have a different topic every week that will benefit children, parents, and members of the community. For those of you who don't know my story and may question my credentials for presenting tonight, let me give you a little background on my life. From age 7 to 12, I was molested and eventually raped by my Boy Scout leader. He was a lieutenant in the local sheriff's department. And back when I was a child, there was no agencies to go to, no social workers. The only ones to go to were law enforcement, and he was a member of law enforcement. And he cut that avenue for me out. And I felt trapped, I felt alone. He had befriended our family, and I didn't even feel I could confide in my parents about what had happened. My mind told me talking about the pain and the shame was equal to reliving it, and we simply didn't want to do that. So I thought I could bury all my pain deep inside and go about my life. It doesn't work. That's why we titled this 5-part series, Breaking the Silence. I led a life that went down one dead-end street after another. I sabotaged career after career. I sabotaged relationships. I sabotaged romance. I got involved in gambling, which led to bankruptcy. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. And in my 40s, I fell into a deep depression from the PTSD I suffered as a child. I was abusing drugs and alcohol to counterattack the depression I was in. And one day, in a deli, getting a coffee, I ran into my abuser. And by his side, he had a young boy about the age he raped me at. And that young boy was calling him the same nickname he used to insist I call him. I went into an instant panic attack. And I ran out of the deli that day and fell into complete despair. Within a month, I walked out of the family business I was in for 16 years, never to look back. And with free time on my hands, with the pain of my childhood reopened, I dove headfirst into drugs and alcohol. I was living this way for a few months, not caring if I lived or died, when one night I decided to go confront my abuser. I drove to his house. I marched inside. A violent struggle ensued, and I ended up stabbing him to death. The next day I was arrested, and I was facing life in prison. My first guest tonight is a man who was working as a lieutenant for the state police. He was in control of a crime scene investigation unit, and his unit worked the scene of the murder I just committed. This man was responsible for investigating my crime. He was responsible for my incarceration, and he played a role in the sentence I received. I was blessed that he and his unit did their jobs correctly, and it allowed me to receive a second-degree manslaughter plea deal. And from that plea deal, I received the minimum 5 years. This gentleman and I have forged a bond and a friendship over this tragedy. I'm honored to call him a friend. He has just started doing podcasts, and he reached out to me to be the first guest on his podcast. You can follow him at his website, undertheyellowtape.com. And it's my honor to invite my friend here tonight, Mr. Howie Ryan. Hey, buddy.
Good, man. How you doing?
Good.
Thanks for having me. I think what a great thing to do right now would be to, especially with the title of this being Breaking the Silence, would be to give you an example of something I've done in my career where I had a victim of a crime we investigated who actually did break the silence. And I'll explain what happened in this case, and then I'll also explain a little bit why I think it was a very important thing that she did. It was a young lady who, as a high school student, she had been sexually assaulted over a period of time by one of her teachers. And she graduated high school, and at some time after that, within a year or two, she decided to confront it, and she spoke. And I think it's a great topic that you're doing here with Breaking the Silence. I think it's absolutely critical, a critical message to be sent. I know it's an incredibly difficult thing for some of these victims to do.
Yeah, Howie, I just want to jump in. I just worked as an advocate to get a new statute of limitations law passed in New Jersey. And one of the statistics we used in getting that law passed is that victims don't come forward till the ages of 48 to 52. It's well decades after they've been abused. So for this girl to come forward a year, 2, 3 years down the road after having this abuse happen to her by her teacher is simply remarkable, and she should be commended for doing that.
She should be. I got a chance to meet her, and as we continued with our investigation, we got a chance to talk to her quite a bit extensively. And one of the things that we did, just to give you a little background, when she came forward, she gave us a pretty good description of what occurred over a period of time. And it was in a high school. And without going into the high school after her graduation or with us that day, she described where in the school this all happened. And she gave very, very good, vivid descriptions of rooms and areas in the school. And one area of the school was a loft, and it was above the auditorium where they have catwalks and they do the lighting and everything. It was an odd place, and it was not the place where somebody might talk about that wasn't familiar with it, and it just lended to her credibility with us as she's being truthful. She explained the situation up here, and this was 2 years later. We were able to go in there and actually find physical evidence of the assault. It turned this case wide open. We were able to pursue a prosecution after that. And I think it's important to talk about this case without giving any specifics or names, obviously, but for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, give her the credit for having the courage to come forward. It's a big deal, and
Let me just jump in again, Howie.
It's vulnerable.
One of the reasons Howie and I have such a deep friendship is when I was arrested, he was the first person to come into my holding cell at the State Police Barracks. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Clark, I have to apologize to you." And I looked at him like, "Why in the world are you apologizing to me?" And he said, "I've known about the animal that molested you for a long, long time. Everybody's heard rumors about him. But whatever he did to you victims to keep you silent, it prevented us from doing our job and arresting him." He goes, "You cannot base a criminal case on rumor and innuendo. You need cold, hard facts." And I was like, wow. So my predator had a 45-year reign of terror in our small town because of the fear he instilled in his victims and also because of his position in society.
Sure.
And Howie brought this case up because this girl went against the norm of keeping silent. And that's the theme of this, breaking the silence.
Yeah, she's to be commended for it. The other side of, not the other side, but in addition to her speaking up, and we even said this to her that day, you know, this individual that she accused was still a teacher. And how many other students did he do this to? Maybe none, maybe others. Maybe she prevented it from happening again. And that's, I think, a big message for us to say is like, look, if you can find the courage to do it and speak, do it. Because although you may have been victimized, there may be other people that have yet to be victimized by the same individual, and you may stop something in the future from happening, and that's a big
These
deal.
predators don't stop.
No, they don't stop.
This
They
is
don't stop.
a lifelong pursuit of theirs.
Yeah, the other thing I think, and we're going to talk a bit about this as we go along, and I even said this to you about your abuser. He's very good at what he did. He was very good at an incredibly evil thing. And a lot of these sexual predators are very, very good at not getting caught. They are very cunning, very conniving, very manipulative, and they know how to navigate a system. And it's kind of, it's scary. It's very scary because they live among us. I'm going to read a few statistics as we go along that some of you may find surprising. But I think one of the other big things I'd like to talk about, and we spoke about this earlier, was what things can we instruct parents on? Some things to look out for, some things to be conscious of. We always said this in all the years I was in law enforcement actively. Children are the most innocent thing we have. They haven't lived the life yet. They don't have the experiences. They don't have the sins that we've all may have done. They are the most innocent thing we have, and it's our job to protect them. And it starts in the home. It starts with the parents. It starts with the family. Unfortunately, what you're going to find in statistics is that oftentimes some of the sexual abuse is conducted by family members. Not always, but quite a bit of time. One statistic that I want to read is at least 90% of sexually abused children are abused by someone the child and or the family knows. So it could be a sibling, could be a parent, could be an uncle, or somebody very close to the family. Like in your case, he was close to the family.
I mean, part of the grooming process is not to only groom the child.
Sure.
It's to groom the parent/guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And my abuser did that as well. He befriended my family, and we took him in. And you and I have talked about how people can't be sheep any longer.
No.
There's so much information at a person's fingertips that to go through life as a sheep when you're surrounded by wolves is simply unacceptable anymore. We were sheep to this guy. And we just, hey, come on into our family. Come have Sunday night dinners with us. Come hunt on our land. Spend holidays with us. And that's how we took him in, and all the while he's looking at us as a future victim of his.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There was a method to that madness. Since that time, we've done a lot of looking into his past, and they have multiple victims. They have multiple targets. They are opportunists. They will endear themselves to the family. They will start offering to help the parents. Oh, I'll drive them to practice, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, and they get closer and closer, and they build that trust. And they do that really so the parents let the guard down a lot of times and will trust this individual with their child. And it's kind of a scary thing because, and I've said this at other things we spoke at, they are hunters of children. They have this issue that they have to deal with, and they are hunting your children. So you'll hear a lot of experts say that it's not always about the actual sexual gratification. It's about the manipulation, the grooming. It's the whole thing. It's the whole process of control, of domination, of winning, and then of maintaining that control over a period of time. And as you start to do these cases, as police officers, before you do anything police-wise every day, you're just a person. You're a family member. You're a husband, a wife, or a mother, or a father, and you can't help but having emotion and feelings of anger towards these people when you start to investigate them and you see what they're capable of doing. It's a very hard thing to put the biases out of your head and focus on the investigation and kind of move through it, because it can be a very overwhelming emotion sometimes, and we have to put that away. We have to kind of compartmentalize that and focus on the investigation and keep it moving forward. The other thing is, as far as criminals go, some of them are very crafty. These child predators are not stupid. There's a learning mechanism for them too. So they will target your children sometimes face to face. They will be close to your family. But one of the really, I think, sad realities today is, the internet. So many of us say the internet's the greatest thing, but it's also one of the worst things, right? Because there's so much that goes on the internet that we would love to do away with, but with freedom of this or freedom of that, it's all there. But there is the dark web, and the dark web is...
And you mentioned to me, there's sites on the dark web where these guys get together, not only share pictures, but compare notes on how they're grooming victims.
Yeah, they socialize. They share notes. They share photos. It's one of the biggest ways we end up catching them. But they talk back and forth. It's almost like I don't want to say a society, but it's like an unwritten society where they actually communicate and they learn from each other, which is even more disturbing when you think about it, that actually goes on. Because it goes to their mindset. When we grab them finally, and some of them will say, I can't help it, I'm sick. Well, you know what? From a law enforcement standpoint, I'm not a doctor, but it's a little more than you just being sick, because you're communicating with others that do the same thing, and you're trying to hone your craft and improve your skill of evil. And it's not something that a society in this day and age should tolerate. We need to be better than this, and we need to actually pursue these people hard.
People need to be vigilant, whether they have a kid or not.
Oh, yeah.
You can notice things, maybe at work. You're working with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And, this is a segue into this book you mentioned to me. Is for everybody to pay attention. It's not normal for a guy or girl to be Mother Teresa to every child group organization in their community. Mm-hmm. It's not healthy to be involved with putting themselves constantly where young children are. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
If you read the obituary of Dennis Pegg, who was my rapist, he was in every organization that involved children that you could come up with.
And he put himself there.
He put himself there. Yeah. Like, they listed his obituary, I think, to give him accolades. Yeah. I read it, and it was the most frightening, disturbing thing I've ever read. Yeah. Because that's not normal for an adult to spend all that time with a child.
Yeah, you just read an itinerary of his hunting grounds.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. We call it, in the military calls it, law enforcement we call it situational awareness, and the public calls it that too. And it's just going along with what you said, you have to pay attention to some things around you. Situational awareness. What's going on around you? I think everybody that's watching this has probably had a moment in their life where they said, something's not right. The hair on your neck's going up for a reason. We always would say, if the hair's up on your neck is going up, it's for a reason. It's instinct. There's something there. Is it always what you think it is? Probably not, but there is something there. Pay attention to those instincts. The other thing is learn to be better at situational awareness. Clark referred to a book. It's right here, and I want to talk about it for a minute, and maybe something that's a little bit unconventional for some of you. You may say, what does this really have to do with this? I'm going to try to explain it has a lot to do it. The book is...
Hold it up for everybody.
Go ahead. The book is called Left of Bang. Okay? Now, this is a book that the subtitle is How the U.S. Marine Corps Combat Hunter Program Can Save Your Life. And you may say, well, what does this have to do with the military? Well, the two people that wrote this book, Patrick Van Horn and Jason Riley, did a great job. And one of the things this book talks about is preparedness. In the military, in the global war on terror, they have a whole different mindset with the preparedness now. They want to see what's coming. And in the book, I'll read you just a quick quote of it. One of the things they say is, and they're talking about enemy combatants, the preparation for an attack leaves behind cues that a trained observer can pick up on to provide an early warning. And they're teaching military folks. But when I say here, preparation for an attack, your rapist is your attacker.
Right.
That's the attack.
So
Now,
somebody noticing that
sure.
Mr. Blue over there is constantly,
Yeah.
with young children. And that's the residue he's
Sure.
leaving behind.
Oh, yeah.
That people are keeping their blinders on.
Yeah.
This book is telling you preparation for an attack will leave
yeah.
clues that their attack is imminent.
It always does. And the proof is in this. If you think back about your situation, I bet you can go through 50 things and went, we should have seen that.
Right.
Or could have seen this. If we had known anything, we could have seen this. Oh my God, this is this, this is this. So it adds up and the cues are there.
Everybody
Right.
that I've run into in my community now has a story about my abuser.
Sure.
The hairdresser, he would bring a different young boy in constantly to get a haircut. Always said it was a nephew. The deli we both
Sure.
frequent, always going in there a lot of times with a young boy.
Yeah.
And it on and on and on. Everybody's got a story now about him, and that's the residue he was,
Oh, yeah.
the clues he was
They
leaving.
leave a path. And if you're paying attention for it and you're ready for it and you have a little bit of knowledge, you're better prepared. Your situational awareness is there. He went on in the book to write, if you were to think of an attack on a timeline, bang is in the middle. Bang is the attack. Now, that bang in child abuse can be the beginning of the grooming, or it could be the physical attack itself. Ideally, as a parent, you want to see this ahead of time. Bang is what we want to prevent that
bang.
moment. We want to prevent the grooming if we can. If we miss that, we want to prevent the next part. And the way you do that is to educate yourself. I said a minute ago that the internet can be a rotten evil thing at times. It can also be a great thing. There's so much open source media on this topic. There's so much open source information. If you have children, maybe just take a little time and get on there and look it up. Just start, throwing Google in there, child molestation, grooming, things like that. You'd be amazed at what comes up and how much useful information is there. And if you prepare, and one of the things this book talks about is just, the book, it was written for military and law enforcement, but it is absolutely relevant to life. Being left of bang means a person has observed one of the pre-event indicators. You've seen something, like you just said. Maybe that one person that always wants to help with the baseball team. They don't have children, maybe they do, but they're always inserting themselves near the children. And if you've ever thought about, that guy's a little weird. Why is he always here? Well, there's one of your cues in your head, and maybe something is not right. I'm not saying act out against these people, but pay attention. If you pay attention, the best thing you can do as a parent is get in between. You are that buffer. You're the protector. You're the one that's raising this child. You are the one that's responsible for protecting this child ultimately. Get in between and create that buffer. But the only way you're going to do that is if you pay attention and have situational awareness.
I want you to talk about a story you told me from our own hometown, which goes along with the residue being left behind for people to see.
Mm-hmm.
You told me in our small town of Stillwater how a lady you knew was seeing a car on the side of a road
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah, this is current.
Current. This is going on in Stillwater now. And she would constantly see this car, the guy on the side of the road. Maybe
Yeah.
the guy would start walking from his car. Really, he's in a spot he really doesn't belong to be in. It's not a spot you go walking.
Well, it's actually even worse than that. Because if you saw this individual, you have to be asleep at the wheel to look at this person and go,
And not get a feel.
yeah, there's something off about him. And what it comes down to is everybody saw him. Everybody. Every day they would either walk past him, drive past him, and say, oh, yeah, I've seen him. And I just kept saying to myself, there's something a little off. And
Let me
go ahead.
see if I can
Yeah,
say this part without getting too graphic.
yeah.
But this lady, after seeing this guy in the car consistently, one day stopped because his head was back in the seat. And she thought there might be something wrong with him.
Right.
So she stopped and she got out and walked over to the car to check on him. And the guy had his head back and was masturbating in the car.
On a public road.
And on a public road where there's children.
Right.
And she just did a 360 and split. That's residue being left behind from some imminent attack coming.
And it was interesting because right before she told me about that event, I had just seen him a few times. I said, I just got to know. So I did some very simple, I don't want to say investigating, but I just looked into it a little bit. I knew his name and I searched and I found out that he also has some mental health issues, but he is also a registered sex offender. And the interesting part was, I shared that information with my neighbors, which is something else you should think about doing if you know that about a predator. Now, he is a Megan's Law offender. He is in the lowest tier, which does not show up in your search, an individual's personal search. I happen to know that he was. But they are there, and you need to look at your sex offender registry for your neighborhoods and find out who is around, because you're going to be surprised at
If
the fact
we're
that they're
telling
around.
this story
Yeah.
and people are listening and saying, all right, but what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
Your answer to them is call the
Well,
police
yeah,
and
I mean,
say this
if-
doesn't look right.
Right, and you have, listen, it's not like they're going to come swooping in a helicopter and snatch them up, but you want them aware of it. If there's somebody in your neighborhood and that kind of thing is going on, you certainly want them gone. And if
You don't have to go confront them.
I actually don't suggest you do that.
Right, you want the police to
there's a system in place for this, but he's there, and the point was, for weeks, people drove by him, and he would wave sometimes, and it's just they said, yeah, he's odd. Yeah, well, the fact that you're all telling me you saw that he was odd should have been your first indicator. Why is he here? What is he doing?
Right.
There's no building here. There's no structure. He's parked on the street across from a horse farm, and he's obviously doing what you said.
Right.
So that should be the first indicator. And then when you look a little into it, you find out, well, he's suffering from some mental health issues, and he's already committed a sexual crime to get him put on the registry. So the registry in every state has them. Look for this. If you have children, you want to know this. Like I said, it goes back to what I call situational awareness. Know what's going on in your neighborhood. That's not necessarily being nosy. That's protecting your castle, your home, your children. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to get in people's faces or, like you said, confront them. I suggest not doing that. But if you don't, and you just bury your head in the sand, and you don't see it coming, what you're going to do is you're going to end up right of bang, and that's the military calls it right of bang. That's completely reactionary. That's the what do I do after this happens? Well, if it already happened, you're too late. You missed it.
You don't want to be right of bang.
You do not want to be there. You want to see it, prevent it, stop it, and stopping it is just getting in between. Telling your kid, you know what? You're not going to Scouts this weekend. You're not going to Girl Scouts or Brownies, whatever it is. We're just going to pull back. We're going to do a little research. We're going to see. Talk to your parents, the parents of some of your children's friends. that's a good community to get together with and see, hey, what do you know? There's things that people are going to say, I don't like this person, they're a little strange. And I'm not talking about tagging people and making them, making baseless accusations, not by any means, because that would be unfair and out of line, but they are your children. You're the protector. Don't rely on anybody else to do it. That's your job first and foremost. It's hard enough to let them go to school all day.
And talking about the parent being the protector, what's your thoughts on a kid with social media, with the apps and being on there? Should parents be allowing a 10-year-old, 11-year-old to be on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok and all?
Let me start that answer by saying this. In 2018, there's 904,000 registered sex offenders. Registered sex offenders.
904,000.
Right, almost 1 million. That's up from the year before, that was 847. Now, that is the 50 states and 6 U.S. territories. That does not include child molesters who are currently serving time, and it also estimates that only 10 to 40% of sex crimes are ever reported.
Right.
All right, so you take that almost million.
And you could go way up with it.
You can way up.
Right.
So it's out there, and I think that's the first point you want to make that's very important, that it's out, it's there. It's not an anomaly, it's not a myth, it's not a rumor. They're there, right? So now, the fact that they're there, and you just brought up the internet, it's such a big hunting ground. Parents are very quick sometimes to give their kids phones.
Right.
And you know as well as I do, a phone is not the old flip phone where you dial a number and it's hello. It's a computer. It's a full-blown computer.
Right.
And they can get anything on it. Everything on there, to some extent, is free. They'll let you see things for free. And when you get into these apps that allow communication, messaging, private messenger, this and that, remember, the kids are savvy. This is the age. This is the computer age. The people that are in their 20s and 30s now started really hard with it, and these younger kids are even going to be better at it. So the chances are your kid's better at the computer than you might be by 14, 15 years old, 13 years old. So that phone is in their pocket that you gave them, and it's a computer. That may be the beacon that they'll find them with. So the more they learn about your child, and the way they learn it is in their social media profiles. They start putting all their information up, and they reach out and they talk to them. They start talking to them. They do it very, very gradually, and we'll get into the grooming steps of grooming. But that phone is a very, very easy thing for them because it's the conversations that the parents don't see.
Right.
So if your kid's in the front yard or on a baseball field or on a football field and they're talking to somebody, you see that. You can immediately go over and interview. This is the stuff you're not going to see.
Right.
Now, this is the part where a lot of parents get hinky with it because I get it. Your teenage kids deserve some privacy sometimes. There's going to be that point where they hit that age where, you got to give them some privacy or whatever. But prior to that, you need to be involved. You need to look at it. You need to look at their phone. Your child should not have a password on his phone that you don't know as the parent, the one paying for the phone at that age. The other thing is, there shouldn't be secrets. In your house, don't create an environment where secrets are okay. This is the family unit. Secrets are not okay. If you breed that kind of mindset, they're going to think it's okay to have secrets from you.
Right.
And next thing you know, they're not going to be telling you these things. And that phone is a plethora of information. It's their mobile computer.
Right.
Their Facebook, everything is on there. The logins, you need to monitor it. I'm not saying you need to totally just smother your child in control, but you need to be on that. Most of the cases that we did once we got a hold of computers is where we found most of our usable evidence for trials and charges. It was photos. They get you to start to exchange photos. They start with the messaging. They target.
There's a systematic process
Oh,
they
yeah.
go through.
Yeah, there is.
And whether it's on a computer or in person, it's a systematic process. It starts off innocent. It starts off.
Well, it's not innocent, but it starts off
right.
subtly.
Subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, not innocent.
Yeah.
And then it's testing the waters.
Oh yeah.
Gradually and getting more risque.
Oh yeah.
As you go through it.
Oh, and the way it escalates is actually a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's frightening, because they will start it very subtly, and then it will accelerate, and then all of a sudden it becomes a very horrifying thing.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of experts will talk about the 6 stages of grooming. Some have 7. You know, the number
Right.
varies, but all of them start with the same thing. They target. They want to target. And they put themselves in a position like your abuser did, where Boy Scouts, maybe baseball, the hiking trails, this and that, where the flock is near him. He can oversee his prey. And then what they do is they get to know whose parents let the guard down, which households have a single parent, where a parent may need help.
Parents
with doing things.
overwhelmed with a
Overwhelmed.
job and
Oh
kids
my God,
and
this
paying
guy all of a
bills.
sudden starts to offer a ride to soccer practice or this, and
Right.
now all of a sudden you have those moments where a child may be alone, and if you can do that, if they can do that, they're very, very good at that. So the targeting the victim, they often look for kids with low self-esteem, the loners who are by themselves or may have some problems. That they're looking for affirmation. They're looking for affection. They call it the 16 lures, luring children. And the number one lure they always talk about is the affection lure. Well, that kid's not getting affection from somewhere. Mommy and daddy are both busy. Listen, let's face it, it's an expensive world. There's not a lot of households anywhere where mommy's home all day, right?
Right.
A lot of parents both have to work to make ends meet. And you have the kids coming home, and there's a statistic, and it's a pretty high number of most of the school-age kids that are assaulted between 3 and 7 p.m. That's the time where you're no longer under the supervision of the school, and mommy and daddy aren't there yet. You're left the most vulnerable. Well, these predators know that, and they insert themselves into these areas.
And the predators, all right, they look for that single parent that's overwhelmed. But they also look for that weakness in the child.
They do.
In my case, I had just had open heart surgery. And at that age, when you're 6, 7 years old, you just want to be like every other child.
Sure.
As you get older in high school, you start finding your route you're going to take in life. But when you're that young, you just want to fit into the group. I had this open heart surgery scar, and I stood out from everybody, and it made me insecure. I had insecurities about it. And this guy could sniff that out.
Oh, yeah.
And he became this mentor to me. And one thing they do is they make the child, they feel special and feel older. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did. And that's what I needed. I thought I needed it because I was so insecure.
Yeah. Well, the second thing is gaining your trust. So he would be there and he would be talking to you and you trusted him. He would ask you questions and you trust him. The third thing is, like you just said, filling that need. Whatever that need may be. Your parents may not be affectionate. You may not be getting whatever it may be. You may not be getting enough time with, playing baseball. Is your dad having a catch with you or something like that? They, like you said, they sniff it out. They find that spot that you're not getting something of, and they want to fill it.
Right. Under the second thing of the grooming process is gaining trust,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things is individual attention. This guy, I grew up at a lake community, and all the young kids would congregate down at the dam area, and this guy would spend hours. Here's a lieutenant in the sheriff's department, spending hours with a little 7, 8-year-old boy, making him feel special,
Mm-hmm.
teaching me how to fish.
And how many parents do you think thought that was just the sweetest thing in the world? They thought it was great, right?
Well,
But they did.
But what he also was doing it out of the watchful eye of my parents.
Sure.
Everything was, he would come to the house often, but it's not like he was fawning over me at the house.
Right.
Now, down at the lake, it's a different matter. He can give me that individual attention.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
And it made me feel special.
And it's the part that's probably the most sickening to me, or that just gets my anger, is that they know how to do it. And I mean, they know it. They see it, man. When you said they sniff it out, it's like a shark in bloody water. They find it. They know where it is, and they know, and they will exploit that weakness to their advantage. And it's just so disgusting, but
One of
They
the
do.
other things under the second grooming process, gaining trust, is share secrets. He started at age 7, 4 months after I had open heart surgery to save my life. He touched my open heart surgery scar, asked if he could touch it. I said, sure. And then it was, this is our little secret, buddy. If you can't keep a secret, we can't have a friendship. And from that point forward, he tested me constantly with secrets. He showed me pornography. This is our little secret. He gave me beer.
he's testing you.
This is our,
That's
can
the
I
test.
keep secrets?
Right. Because the secrets are about to get a lot more severe.
Severe, right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's almost like there's a playbook and they all follow it.
It's
you know?
scary, but there is.
Right.
And some of it is right online, you know. Another one then is isolating the child, getting them away from their parents.
Down at the lake. Right.
Either going where you are or offering to take you. Hey, we're going to go to we're going to go to the amusement park, or we're going to go to the county fair, or we're going to do this. I'm going to take in a bunch of kids or something like that. Man, parents got to wake up. That's not something that you should be just
If
willing.
your next door neighbor seems like the greatest guy in the world and he wants to drive your kid to every practice and to tennis lessons, no.
That's how I am. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like you got to just, circle the wagons and everybody in the world's evil, because I don't mean that.
Right.
But you have to pay more attention, and you have to start to feel things out.
You got to get a sense,
and,
like,
yeah,
does
maybe
it feel right or not?
And also spend time there. This is going to sound crazy. Somebody takes your kid somewhere, you may want to go and surprise them. Show up. See the reaction you get. And taking your kids to the baseball game, you show up later.
Right.
Hey, how's it going? If you have an uncomfortable feeling, maybe there's a reason why.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. But again, just get involved, situational awareness. You know
Awareness.
what I mean?
Right.
They'll isolate the child for a while, and then eventually they will start to sexualize that relationship.
Right.
And showing you photos.
Showing me, photos. My abuser said a friend of his bought an old farmhouse and there was a desk left behind. And in the desk were all these pornographic pictures. Come here, sit next to me and let me show you some of them. And I, as a 10-year-old, was excited to see some naked women. But there weren't any naked women. It was all close-ups of penises.
Yeah.
And I said, where are all the women then?
Just gauging your reaction.
And he's trying to normalize
Yeah.
penises to me. And, so it starts with photos and then it has to mold into touching,
Oh, yeah.
So he started his touching with wrestling matches. And then once that started, then it just became other things sexually,
Right.
and eventually, led to rape.
And then they maintain the control. Right?
Yeah.
There was threats, I'm sure.
All right, that's number 6 grooming process.
Did he threaten you?
Yeah. After he raped me, because I was screaming and crying, his dog started barking nonstop. And he sat me down at his kitchen table, and he brought his dog, which was in a little alcove, right into the kitchen area, and he beat his dog unconscious in front of me. And he told me, you open up your mouth, this is what'll happen to you.
Yeah.
I just got raped. Now he's beating his dog to death unconscious in front of me.
Well, what he
And
wants
I'm
to,
supposed to run home and just, this guy I idolized, who I looked up to,
Yeah.
and now he's just totally twisted at my thinking.
well, you think about it, he knows that you are aware that what he just did was wrong. And he has to, at all costs, protect himself. And the way to do it, or the way he thinks he can do it, is to do something so violent, to actually just rock your world with the violence that you think, that's going to happen to me. I can't say anything. See, that's where they get into that maintaining and control a lot of times, where things turn very violent. And they will do something that the victim has never seen before, never seen them do before. They escalate it, or they bring it to a level of trauma beyond the sexual trauma. Now it's a violent trauma. I'll kill your family. I'll target this. You have a brother, you have a sister, you have your mother, whatever it is, and you feel that you have to protect that secret to protect them. And
right.
That's a powerful tool.
And to protect yourself.
Yeah, and it's it's a horrible. Every single last bit of this thing is horrible, and that last part is part that mentally tears people to shreds. They can't speak, and that's why I think this whole thing about breaking the silence is, man, it's such a powerful message. There's a couple of questions. One of the questions was, is it typical for one of these molester to have more than one victim at a time? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much so. In this particular case, go ahead, tell some of the story.
My molester, like I said, when you read his obituary, at the end of this, Google Dennis Pegg obituary and tell me if you're not disturbed after reading it. He was in the Audubon Society teaching young children how to watch birds. He's on the Appalachian Trail handing out water and candy bars to weary young hikers.
And inviting them back for showers.
Inviting them back to his house for a warm meal and a hot shower. He was a camp counselor at High Point State Park when they had camps there. He's in the Boy Scouts. He was working at the jail and offering to be a mentor to inmates that are getting released, young male inmates, and taking them to his home to mentor them and molesting them. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So he's got his tentacles working all over areas and has victims, potential victims, at various stages of the grooming process. So the answer is absolutely. When I was locked up in prison, I got therapy for the first time in my life, and understand that a social worker, therapist in prison is about as liberal as you can get. And she told me one day, Clark, the unit you're on has 1 out of 3, maybe closer to 2 out of 3 guys are there for a sex crime. I was like, what? She goes, yeah. And she goes, don't let guys know what you're here for. Don't let them, amp you up to do something stupid to one of these guys. I said, I'm not going to do that. And I said, let me ask you, what do you as a therapist do for all these predators while they're here before they get released? And she looked me in the eye and she said, absolutely nothing. I go, what? She goes, they don't want help. They're master liars, master manipulators. And she goes, it's a complete waste of our time. So these guys will never stop.
Oh no, they're not stopping that. They're just not going to stop that. In this particular, in your case, and I'll stick with that one for a minute. After we laugh about this when I say this, but after we locked you up, as the investigation unfolded, one of the things that we found was the path of destruction that the abuser, left behind was huge. The names started to come out, and obviously I don't ever release them or talk about them. But the thing that really is heartbreaking too is there was a slew of suicides. Right. There was at least 4 or 5 that we attributed to him as former victims of his, and they took their lives. And a lot of it is because they couldn't break that silence. Right. They couldn't talk about it. So
you have another question there. Let's get to that, and then we got to wrap
This
up.
one is. Is there any specific advice we'd give to teachers about what they should do if they suspect a child is abused? Yes. What I would say is in most schools right now you have a school resource officer, okay, and they're generally part of a local police department. Now, I would approach them first, and I would ask them their opinion. I would give them your suspicions, kept in confidence, obviously. They would pass it up the proper chain in their agency to the detectives that may be, and they'll start to look into it. It's not like they sweep in and lock anybody up right away. They have to build the case, and it's not that easy of a thing to do. But if you are a teacher and you suspect that a child is being abused, both physically and your first and closest resource is your resource officer who's on premises. If there is not one there, there's nothing that says you can't make a phone call and be very honest and open. Say, I don't know, but I have a suspicion, and I feel like I'm not doing the right thing if I don't say anything. You know, I just like to have a conversation with the detective, and they will come and they will speak to you, and they can take it from there, maybe even work with you and work with the school. You know, that's
the title of our thing, Breaking the Silence, is
Yeah.
not only for victims, it's for people that are seeing something
Sure.
that's not right.
And we talked about the parents
Right.
being that front line. They are. But the teachers, under normal, you know, non-COVID conditions when school's open, they're the other protectors. They're there. So it's a great one.
All right. I think we're about done. I hope you all got something out of this. I hope you learned something. I hope you realize that even if you don't have a child, you have a responsibility to keep aware of what is going on around you, to notice something that does not seem right, and to speak up about it. Breaking the silence goes for everyone, not just victims. I thank you for tuning in. Next week, we're going to delve into how to get children to open up to you. I'm going to have on the people from Ginny's House, which is for abused children. I'm going to have the executive director, and I'm going to have a psychiatrist on. And they're going to talk about how they get children to open up. And it's going to be a valuable tool for every parent, not just to be able to talk to their child about molestation, but to talk to their child about anything, about bullying, about drugs, about alcohol, about self-loathing, self-hatred, insecurities, whatever it may be. You're going to learn valuable tools next week on how to speak to your child. Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. You know, we've all been in a hard place with the pandemic. There has been talk all over the country about police. It seems that some people have a hard time trusting a police officer. I would trust Howie Ryan any day of the week. We can only hope that there are others out there like Howie, and I'm sure they are. I would like to once again thank the Clifton Kiwanis Club. Folks, as I just mentioned, the pandemic has hit everybody hard. If you have the availability, please visit our websites collectively, cliftonkiwanis.org, clarkfredericks.com, www.greatergoodmediallc.com, and make a pledge. Become a sponsor if you can. That's all I have for now. Thank you, and we'll see you next week on Breaking the Silence.
Time has passed, and so have the years. Looking back for us, it's measured in tears. Anxiously, I wait with concern.